Good morning. Welcome to our webinar about Aston's iShare Advanced Edit Preview, which will give users more desktop-like editing capabilities within the iShare GIS platform. As part of today's session, Matt Walker, Aston's Principal Development Architect, will provide a technical overview of iShare Advanced Edit Preview, showing you its purpose, benefits, and the ease with which it can be used. My name is Darren Fennell. After spending 25 years in local government, today is the 1-month anniversary of me joining Aston as an account manager, and I'm here to host today's session. That's enough from me. Let's get started by handing over to Matt for today's session on iShare Advanced Edit Preview.
Thank you, Darren. Morning, everybody. So I'm excited to be able to share some work that we've been doing on iShare GIS version 6. Let me just share my screen and we can get going. Okay, I think we're good. So in order to demonstrate iShare Advanced Edit, we've set up a couple of scenarios. Thanks to Tracy and the team at Warsaw for providing some data to allow us to set the scenarios up. The two scenarios we've got to demonstrate are creating some school catchment areas and then separately creating a postcode-based project area. iShare Advanced Edit is some new functionality built on top of iShare GIS version 6 and is accessible via the regular iShare GIS interface. The layers I've got set up here. So at the moment, I've got an editable layer here, which is school catchments. That's made editable in the usual way within Studio, assigning appropriate roles. The data is stored within the STW. And then I've got some reference data. So I've got some polling districts, could be any existing geometry, but we've chosen polling districts because they fit quite nicely with the distribution of schools within Warsaw. We've got some code point polygon boundaries, and I've also just got the location of the primary schools themselves. So for our first scenario, we're going to look at creating a catchment area for this school here. So that's the point, and I'm going to make it up out of a couple of pre-existing polygons from polling districts. So to get started, we toggle into edit mode, just in the usual way. That brings us into the feature editing panel within iShare GIS. We've got the usual options. In this case, we're going to choose create. And here we have the options you'd normally see when creating a new feature. Defaults to adding a geometry where you'd click and add individual points one at a time. You've also got a feature builder to allow you to pick pre-existing polygons from master map topography. And we've got a new button, which is the iShare Advanced Edit button. So we're going to go ahead and click on iShare Advanced Edit. And that will bring us into the iShare Advanced Edit window. So new window preserves the current zoom of the map and also the current selected layers. We have a few options to choose from, and in particular here, we have a select layer, and this is where we are going to go ahead and we're going to choose polling districts. And that allows us to then use the polling districts with a host of editing tools. The select layer we can use to both select individual features out with the select tool here, but we can also do snapping to the vertices of the pre-existing features. So here I'm going to use the default tool here, select, and I'm going to take a couple of polling districts to make this individual catchment area. In this case, that's all I'm going to do. Click on done. Takes me back through to regular iShare GIS feature editing. I can provide some attribution and then go ahead and save. So that's captured a catchment area based on a couple of existing geometries and save them back to the STW database, all with, in this case, just a couple of clicks. Now I've got to go ahead and do something similar for this school over here. That one there. So again, I'll toggle into editing mode, click and create, and head straight for iShare Advanced Edit. Again, preserves my current view and layers. And in this case, I'm again going to go into polling districts and choose a couple here. And then I'm also just going to demonstrate the fact that I can also select from other layers. So if I enable code point polygons, I then get the code point polygons available. You can see all of the nodes and their edges. And then I can just click to extend that existing editable feature based on the features that we find in code point. You can essentially do that with any what we call OGC polygon layer. so anything other than a classic, and you're editing within iShare Advanced Edit a single feature, and we are therefore adding or removing parts from that single feature. So I'm happy with that now. Again, click on Done, and take me back through to iShare.js. I can again write an attribution. Here's some I provided earlier, and hit Save. And there we are. That's a couple of catchment areas captured based on pre-existing geometries. If I click on those, you get the usual with the attribution coming through as you'd expect. So that was a very simple case. We haven't actually done very much editing there. We've just copied some features from existing layers. Let's move on to the next scenario. So enable my postcode-based project layer. So again, this is a regular editable layer within iShare.js being saved into the SDW. I'll zoom out a touch, find my area of interest. So I want somewhere around here. Here we are, somewhere down by the Birmingham Road. And now I'm going to enable code point with polygons. And I'm going to basically make up a project area, this area south of the Birmingham Road based on those postcodes. Again, toggle into editing mode, click on create, and straight into advanced edit. So here I'm choosing code point with polygons as my select layer, and then I can go about straight away and start selecting those I'm interested in. So I've selected a number of polygons that make up my project area. Because of the nature of code point polygons, them being automatically generated from postcode points, you end up with some strange shapes in some cases. And I'm now going to demonstrate some of the other tools that we can use to clean up these sorts of strange shapes and trim sections. So you've got available to you a modify tool, very similar to what you've got within iShare.js at this point, which allows you to reshape. So you can drag existing nodes, create new nodes by dragging on a midpoint of the line. One of the big differences here, though, is that we snap. So we can snap to the existing edges and nodes for the select layer, and also the editable feature itself. And we've also hopefully made it easier to go ahead and delete sections. At this point, I can also show you undo and redo. So you get multi-level undo and redo, just like you would within a Google Doc or a spreadsheet, say. And that allows you to cycle through, if we just zoom out a touch, see that better, cycle through the actions that you've performed. That's quite nice. And we've also got a more suitable tool in this case for removing that extra edge, which would be this erase tool. So the erase tool allows us to basically draw a patch over the top of a section of the feature that you wish to delete. And once you've completed it, it will crop it out. So that works both for sections that are in the exterior, but also within the interior of the polygon. So you can now create polygon holes, which is quite nice. Again, that also snaps. So the erase tool also allows you to snap to both edges and nodes. So that looks nice, tidied that section up. Now also just going to go down here, and let's say our project area doesn't include the acorn rest home for whatever reason. We could then use the tools to chop that out. So I'm going to now switch over to using master map topography as my select layer, and I will use the select tool to punch out a feature. I think got a slight internet issue there at the moment. I'm going to run through that very briefly again. Okay, one polygons, select those. Let's keep it at that for now, and then we'll look to punch out that section. This is looking better. There we go on the rest home. There we go, good. Okay, so that's removed the rest home from the project area. I could then use, say, the erase tool to completely remove that section right out to the road, and indeed the node tool just to tidy up my work. So move that to wherever I fancy. The other tool we haven't mentioned yet, which is probably actually the most conventional, is the draw tool. So this allows us to again snap and create a polygon but simply by clicking and drawing. One of the nice features here, though, is that, again, it will merge in with the existing feature. So if I come around here, then it will merge in the new patch that's been drawn in with the currently editable feature. So it's like the opposite to the erase tool. And together you can use that to make some quite interesting shapes. One of the key things is being able to produce donut holes, which I don't think you can currently do with iShare GIS. One further option to talk about is the clear tool. So that basically allows you to clear and start again if you've gone truly wrong, or you've got a geometry that pre-exists and you want to then edit that, start from scratch, you can do so. And there's also a standard info tool to allow you to just get information about the reference layers that are available to you. You've also got a layer control, gives you the same options as you would within iShare GIS. So you get all of the layers that are currently enabled within iShare GIS and the ability to toggle the visibility. And we can then go back and let's hopefully save this time. There we go, that's more like it. Cool. So hopefully that's given you a feel for what iShare Advanced Edit is, and I'll now pass back to Darren for any questions.
Thanks for that, Matt. It's great to see the potential benefits of this exciting new functionality. Now let's jump into the Q&A session. Mike Saunt, Aston's MD, is here to help answer any of your questions.
Hello everyone. We've got a few questions that were asked by people prior to coming in. One of the things that I wanted to mention as a bit of a preamble for you all is that we've presented this as a preview, and the real goal for us is to get as much customer feedback that we can to see if this functionality is things that you all want, and then work out what the priority is for people, how we should look at funding. But we also really want to understand how it can potentially save licensing for yourselves if you've got lots of desktop users that just use simple or advanced editing capabilities. They may be able to replace by using this. And then obviously we would need to work out internally and with our customers how we look at doing the funding. So there are a few questions that have come in about a snapping to master map and also the ability to handle multi-polygons, which I'm pretty sure that was what you were showing there, Matt. So
yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so if I modify this feature, for instance, and toggle in, yeah, if you've got a layer that requires genuine multi-polygon, yeah, you could go ahead and create another polygon part over here. Same rules apply within iShare GIS. If the editable layer is a polygon type, then you can't save it if it's got multiple parts. If it's multi-polygon, then it will happily be able to save a feature with multiple polygon parts. So yeah, in this case, this is, I think, a multi-polygon, so I can go ahead and save that.
So that, yeah. Thanks for that, Matt. So that's all governed by the database, isn't it? On what the type
that's
of geometry.
Right, yeah.
So that's up to yourselves to decide on how that works. If you just want single polygons, which is the case for some business reasons. There's a question I've got from Amy, which I think that's from a UI perspective on the edit, how you go into edit mode. That is something that can be looked at. At the moment, we're just looking at this advanced edit side of things, but we'll make a log of that and bring that up with yourself and raise it with other customers, see what the feedback is on that. But looking at attribute validation, we've talked about this internally, and there's lots of ways to potentially look at doing this. We have our publisher module, which is available for publishing any data to the internet. Now that uses a database to generate pick lists and templates to provide that through to a web page. We've also had internally people wondering whether, from an administration perspective, it could be simpler to use something in the same way that QGIS does for when they create forms. I'm not sure if people are aware of that, but you can go through and specify a layer where you want to get a pick list from, and it will get all the unique values. So if that's something that people do want to vote for, so to speak, that's that. So Joe, splines. I think if there are any splines or anything like that created, that could be detected via the database, and you can do various things to change the geometry constraints that you have within a database table. So that I would think could be applied via that. But we'll take that on board to understand what the impact could be of doing that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you could definitely end up with, just as you would within desktop tools, yeah, slithers, etc. And one of the things I've found is that being able to use the erase tool is useful for removing. So this is a slightly contrived example, but removing those extra slithers that are non-desirable. Yeah, it seems to work out quite well.
Okay, thanks, Pat. that helps. So I think there's a couple of ways with that, and this is really good. This sort of feedback. And talking about feedback, actually, is we are looking at setting up two types of groups. As Matt mentioned and Darren's mentioned, this is functionality that's available. It's only in version 6, and we're aware that not all customers are on version 6. But for customers who are, we'll be setting up a beta group if you want to be invited to participate in that. We'd love to have you on board to try and help us understand it. We think we've got a pretty solid set of tools so far. And I think the key thing is that because it's done within a modal window, you have to take it back into the feature edit, the standard iShare GIS feature edit before you save to the database. So the possibility of corrupting data is absolutely minimal. The other side, for customers who aren't on version 6, we'd hope that this sort of functionality can help you promote the need to migrate across to version 6. We are looking to potentially have functional advisors. So these are customers who like the look of the functionality, but there are things like mentioned here with splines or multi-polygon, these sort of questions. We can be looking into doing that. Somebody again has asked about when will it be launched. We're not in a position to say that as yet. We've got a beta process to go through, but it really depends on funding, how we're going to manage that ourselves and with yourselves. And it depends on the feedback that we're getting from yourselves. We don't want to just be trying to release software without getting feedback from customers. It's a really important thing for us to be doing. There was questions internally about would these types of geometry tools be useful for just standard iShare GIS when you're not editing. So if you can imagine a scenario such as you want to do some analysis, you want to say pull out residents within a ward, would it be good to be able to change the selection layer within iShare GIS to say I want to create a selection geometry that I can then from a ward layer and then copy that into the selection and then run a query straight away without doing any editing, produce a CSV in the data browser, and then send those details off to somebody. Many of our data sets are based upon LLPG BLPUs. Can we copy these and the associated address elements? So at the moment, it's just geometry. But if you did want to look at that, that's something, again, if we can get this sort of feedback from customers, anything that's of value, we can look at moving that across. If you're not on version 6, we'll take this on as a functional advisory role, if that makes sense. And we'll set some various mechanisms to be able to communicate. Can you use this functionality in the annotations layer? There's quite a lot that we can look at to form some functional improvements that we're looking at iShare GIS moving forward. I think that's all from me. I'll pass back to Darren.
Thanks for that, Mike. So that's almost all the time we have for today. But before we sign off, there's a few closing comments. 2025 marks Aston Technology's 20th year anniversary. On the 5th of April 2005, Mike Saunt started Aston with the iShare Maps application and a vision focused on web services and open source. Now, over 20 years later, Aston has grown into a UK market leader for open source geospatial solutions. Now, much more than iShare Maps, we provide web mapping, enterprise GIS, and metadata solutions, as well as training and support for open source geospatial software. This marks a fantastic achievement by a hardworking team who are passionate about supporting the open source geospatial community. We want to say a big thank you to our customers, without whom none of this would have been possible. If you'd like to know more about Aston's journey over the past 2 decades, we're releasing a short series of blogs, the first of which is already available on our website. Thank you once again to Matt Walker for the presentation and Mike Saunt for the Q&A. I hope you found this session valuable, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event.